So welcome to In the Morning, the 7-minute devotional to start your day, all right? We are in Psalm 132 this morning. Now, let me say this as a way of reminder. If you ever miss one of our live teachings, you can always go back to the In the Morning page. All of our devotionals are on there. This morning, we're going to pick up where we left off last week. I guess we left off in Psalm 131, and so we're going to move on to Psalm 132. Now, the title of Psalm 132 is this: The Lord has chosen Zion. And what the psalm is doing is it's telling two stories at the same time. It's telling the story of David moving from afflicted to anointed. Afflicted to anointed. It's also telling the quest that David was on to build the house of God. And God knew that at least before Jesus came to earth, so what we typically know is the Old Testament, that he wanted a permanent residence. Now, this wasn't going to last forever because Jesus was going to come and kind of blow that whole thing up. More on that later. But that's the other part of this psalm. Now, let's look at it a little bit verse by verse. We're going to hop around a little bit. So good morning, everybody. Glad you're here. We're in Psalm 132 this morning for our 7-minute devotional. Remember, O Lord, this is verse 1 of Psalm 132. Remember, O Lord, in David's favor, all the hardships that he endured. David is actually writing this psalm, and so he's saying, God, hey, remember David, remember me and how difficult my life has been. Maybe you can relate to David. I mean, David certainly had difficulties, right? He could have laid him out. The lions and the bears when he was watching his father's sheep. His brothers belittled him and didn't think he could accomplish anything. He had to face Goliath. That was a big challenge. And then even later, David was good to Saul. Saul tried to kill him. David had a best friend. They had to be separated. David becomes king. He's king. You would think all of your troubles leave when you're king. No, if David teaches us anything, it's that there's never a season of life when everything is going to be perfect. Like there's always going to be something where you're going to need God's help and grace on. And so David becomes king, and even then his life isn't perfect. And he faces more affliction. And so near the end of his life, David is saying, God, please remember my affliction. Now here's the good news. God did remember David's affliction. And here's the other good news. God remembers your affliction too. Every battle that you faced, God remembers it. Every time you felt hurt, every time you felt betrayed, every time you had to look on as a loved one face something that you didn't think they should face, every affliction that you have faced, God has remembered. And more so, the New Testament part of the Bible tells us not only has God remembered our afflictions, but he can actually use those afflictions for your good and for his glory. This gives meaning to every part of our lives. So David asked the Lord to remember his afflictions, and then immediately after that, David makes this bold statement. It's in verse 3. He says, I will not enter my house or get into my bed. I will not give sleep to my eyes or slumber to my eyelids until I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling place for the mighty one of Jacob. What David was saying is this: God, you've placed a dream in my heart, and I know it's from you, God, and I will not stop until I accomplish it. I will keep on pressing on. Despite all of the afflictions, I will remain committed to you, and I will press on with the dream that you have given me. Friend, do you have a dream in your heart that you know that God has given you that makes you dive deeper into God's presence? One of the ways I think that God works in our lives is he places a mission on us or inside of us, and it drives us because we know, God, I could never do this without you. Now, here's the irony. David never accomplishes the dream. David doesn't actually build the house of God. David wants to. He says, I'm not going to stop until I do, but he never actually does it. Sometimes our dreams aren't necessarily God's dreams. Now, please hear me out here. It doesn't mean that God didn't use David to the accomplishment of building his house. It just meant that God had a little different plan for the ending than David did. See, in our finite minds, we can't see into all of God's infinite wisdom. So sometimes all we can do is think, okay, this is where I know I'm headed. And so we're just obedient to God along the way. And sometimes he leaves the final culmination of the dream to a next generation. Friend, you might be working on something right now that isn't for you to finish. It's for your children to finish. It's for the next generation to finish. So what do you do right now? You stay obedient. Speaking of children, there's my beautiful daughter right now. Say hi. Reagan, can you come here and say hi to all the nice people? Come here. My daughter wants to say hi right now. There might be something that I'm doing in my life right now that isn't even for me to finish. It's for Reagan to finish. It's for her or her brother that's coming someday. Reagan, say hi to the nice people. She's a little sleepy right now. So friends, whatever it is that God has called you to do, keep on doing it. Stay committed to the dream. As you can tell, my hands are a little busy right now with Reagan, so I'm going to have to take care of that. I love you guys. Have a great Monday. We will see you tomorrow morning at 7:30. I love you guys. Thanks for being here.